God and science. Many people think that these two topics can never be connected. Here is Robin to help us with our thinking.
We're living in a very scientific age, but we're also still living in quite a lot of believing in God type age. Have you ever noticed how whenever we think about science and religion, it's always science versus religion, Big Bang versus God, Richard Dawkins and his new atheists versus Christian believers and theologians? You know, it needn't be like that. It needn't be science versus religion. It can just as easily and much better be science and religion working together, asking and answering different questions. In fact, it was like that once upon a time. From the birth of modern science in the 17th century, scientists and theologians thought and worked together to discover God and his world. It really began in the mid-19th century, when scientists began to pull away from the idea of God, and there was a great collision. You know, a very surprising thing happened not so long ago, well, about 10 years ago. There was a major research. They questioned 2,000 European scientists about their views on God. The results are incredible. A quarter said, no, we don't do God, we are complete atheists. But the same number, almost exactly a quarter, said, we are scientists, but we are also strong believers in God. A quarter. So you've already worked it out. There's a half of them unaccounted for in the middle. And this half together said, we're not sure about science, about God. Maybe there is, but we're just not sure. Some years ago, Paul Davies, who's an Australian physicist, began writing books that were sort of vaguely about God. Is there, isn't there? This one I read, I loved it, called The Mind of God. And in it, he refers to an earlier book that he'd written, which was called God and the New Physics. And he says, when I brought this first book out, God and the New Physics, I was astonished to discover how many of my scientific colleagues wrote to me to say they were firm believers in God. This is almost the exact opposite of the common image, isn't it? Of science at war, in competition, science versus religion. This is much more like science and religion, working alongside each other. The great American biologist Stephen Jay Gould wrote about this, and he said we needn't be, he wasn't a believer in God, but he was sympathetic. He says, we needn't always be at each other. Religion and science he described as two equal magisterium or provinces of thinking and exploring, and they can work side by side. You know, it's interesting, though not very well known, two statements about creation. The first one comes from the Bible, and it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Not only that, he also goes on to create, sea and sky and animals, and eventually he creates man and woman, human beings made in his own image. I suppose the most scientific modern approach would say, in the beginning, there was the Big Bang. The interesting thing is that the basic idea of the Big Bang was first floated and made well known by a scientist, a Belgian scientist, Georges Lemaitre, who was also a Roman Catholic priest. So not science versus religion, but science working with religion, to find answers, to find truths, to find explanations.
God and science, which is right? Science or God? Big Bang or creation? Evolution or the miracle of life? Why not both? Living in harmony? Explaining both where we came from, why we are here, and who we are. Science and religion, physics and philosophy, biology and spirituality.
As we try to understand life, the universe, the planets, ourselves, I want to raise two issues. One is the point of creation. In the Bible, in the beginning, science, the Big Bang. The whole idea about the Big Bang is that was one moment there is absolutely nothing, and suddenly, from out of nothing, there comes something. It begins with a tiny single point, which then explodes at phenomenal speed, gas, rocks, wow, and a whole universe is born. It's incredible and beautiful and awe-inspiring, the concept. But the question is, if there was nothing and then suddenly there is a Big Bang, so who lit the blue touch paper? Not that there actually was a blue touch paper. Not that there actually was a box of matches, because there was nothing. Well, it is interesting. When the Big Bang concept began to become popular, a lot of leading scientists who before that had believed that there was just always a universe, they didn't like the Big Bang idea, because they realized if we embrace the Big Bang, people will start to talk about there must have been a creator. Someone must have started it. That's interesting, isn't it? Big Bang and in the beginning. The second thing is, how did life come to happen? So at one point, there's rocks and gases and darkness and maybe rain and water. But then, out of this hard, rocky place, suddenly, there is life, organic life. Single-celled creatures, multi-celled creatures, single amoeba, plants, insects, animals, birds, human, the whole, it's almost like a second Big Bang or an opening out of the Big Bang to create life. Scientists have never been able to explain that. Why did it happen? How did it happen? We just have this wonderment. Of course, in the Bible, it says God made them. God made those simple, minute, first pieces of organic life which had livingness inside them. And from them, they developed into the whole range of the multitude. You see, in both these stories, the Big Bang and the emergence of life, you can have science, you can have religion. Why not bring both together? I went through a phase in my life where I used to go into a couple of local comprehensive schools, secondary schools, and meet with lots of students, and always with the science ones, it always came up. Vicar, I don't do God, we believe in the Big Bang. Vicar, we don't do God, we believe in evolution. Why can't we do both? Why can't we have both to see the full beauty and depth and mystery and poetry and architecture and music of the whole of creation? In the beginning, God made. But what he has made, we are part of it. So what about in the now? In the now, where are we? We don't need to have to choose between science and religion. We can do both. We can walk both. We can live both. We can learn from both about how great this God is.